The Maple Leafs squeak out with a 6-3 win over Philadelphia on the weekend and now get set for a tough go in Florida. They've got Tampa they're going to have to go up against. We'll get to all that and more on today's edition of Locked On Leafs.
You're Locked On Maple Leafs, your daily podcast on the Toronto Maple Leafs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Leafs podcast, one-stop shop for all things Leafs. I'm your host, Mike DiStefano from TSN 1050 Toronto Radio, also known as Al's brother from TSN's Overdrive and TSN 1050's Leafs Lunch. Joining me, it's my co-host, Dave Morassutti from Sportsnet, also a writer for the NHLPA. And Locked On Leafs is a daily Maple Leaf-centric podcast, so be sure to subscribe for free wherever you get your podcast from. You can now catch us on YouTube as well. That's Locked On Leafs on YouTube, and we're pretty darn close. I think last I saw, we're up to what, 440-ish, 430 in and around that mark. 436 as we sit here right now. And once we get to 500, we're giving away this bad boy. Tim Hortons NHL Superstars collectible stick, Austin Matthews. If you're a listener of the podcast, make sure that you go and subscribe to YouTube. You can still listen via podcast, but go and subscribe on YouTube to make yourself eligible for the prize. And anywhere in the world, there's no, you don't have to only live in Canada or live in the States. Wherever you're living from, if you're a Maple Leaf fan, you're subscribed to this podcast via YouTube, you'll be entered in to win this one. We might do I was thinking about finding out a fun, interactive way to pick the winner, but hey, we got to get to 500 subs first. So everybody, go sub up. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. And, I was able to make a bet at BetOnline the other day. Put a little money line action on the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they came up victorious Saturday night against the Philadelphia Flyers. 6-3 win. Dave, to me, it wasn't the best win. I know you look at it 6-3. Oh, that must have been great. And if you only caught the third period, you would think that. But it was a bit of a slow starter. It was scoreless after the first period. Jack Campbell had to step up. It was his first game back from injury. His first game in a month, over a month, really. And he stepped up big, I thought. And then the team finally took control in the third period and wound up with the 6-3 victory. Dave, what were your impressions of that one?
Yeah, I thought they didn't look good in the first two periods, right? And Sheldon Keefe was really sometimes when they get the win, Sheldon Keefe isn't really going to harm on pushed on the negatives. He's really just going to say, we got the win. There's some things we didn't like, but no, he was adamant that this was not a good performance for his club. And I think he's just trying to get through to this team that there's not many games left in the season. If you put up a stinger against Philadelphia, they could have lost that game based on how the first two periods were going. You got Tampa and Florida next. I think he just wants this team to get in the right frame of mind, especially considering what happened the week before against Montreal, a team that's also lower than them in the standings, at the bottom of the standings. I just think maybe this was a little bit of frustration from the coach, say another opponent that we played down to for the first two periods, and then all of a sudden they just decide to turn the switch on and score 4 goals in the third period, which entertaining as heck, but not the type of effort you like to see from a team that's fighting to get into the top of the division.
Yeah, and luckily, unlike in other games, they got the goaltending to withstand that slow start, which is sometimes what we saw happen earlier in the season, right? Campbell stood on his head for a large majority of the first 6 weeks of the season and allowed the team to find the legs underneath them, and then boom, they would come out and they would start scoring and win hockey games. And that was kind of what happened last night, right? They finally were able to, or they were able to keep the bleeding settled. There was no, Philly's not a good team anyways. It's not like they came out and completely outplayed Toronto. They played all right, they played okay, had some good opportunities. But Jack Campbell, I thought, in his return to the crease, I didn't know what to expect. I'll be honest. I
Yeah.
didn't know what to expect. Obviously, we're hoping for the best. But, in one mind, I'm like, okay, last time I saw this guy, he was giving up 4 goals a night. And he gave up 3 goals in the game. But, he was giving up 4 goals a night. His confidence was shot. And, it wasn't going well. So now he comes in. He's been out for the last 5 weeks or so. He has had a chance to rejuvenate. He's had a chance to clear his mind mentally. He's had a chance to rest and heal his body. And I was, a little bit optimistic. Maybe this is a good opportunity for him to get a game against a non-playoff team and make some big stops, and the team can end up getting a win and maybe build his confidence. And that's kind of what happened. But he actually played really well. He came up clutch, especially early on, to keep this team in it. That's the type of goaltending that we were seeing from him earlier in the season. And it was really the only reason why this team was able to hang around before, because if this game was, let's say, 5-2 after 2 periods, which it very well could have been, I don't think the Maple Leafs come back and win this one, 6-5, let's say. Like, I don't think they come back and win that game. But because he held them, kept them in it, it allowed them to keep control of the game, or at least not let it slip away from them. And in the third period, they took over, and the big boys got going. You had a beautiful play by Mitch Marner leading to an Austin Matthews goal. You had a shorthanded goal, Pierre Engvall, with a really nice play again. I mean, the penalty kill seems to be scoring like every other game at this point. They're getting like solid scoring chances each and every game. It honestly seems like it's kind of astounding at this moment in time. But overall, it wasn't the best performance of the Maple Leafs. I think we could both agree on that. But hey, 2 points is 2 points, and the biggest takeaway is that Jack Campbell looked comfortable and looked pretty good and gave his team a chance to win the game.
Yeah, I know there probably were some people really concerned about what Jack Campbell was going to be like coming off the injury. And look, it's certainly valid given how everything has gone the last few months with this with the Leafs goaltending situation. But I feel like he just needed a chance to get a reset. Clear his mind of the physical and maybe the mental roadblocks he was dealing with. And yeah, did he look was he perfect? No, but you're trying to build him back up, right? It's going to take some time. It's not going to just happen all of a sudden. The unfortunate part is he has kind of what likely should have been an easier game against Philadelphia, and then boom, you're going up against the reigning defending Stanley Cup champions in your next start. So like he's going to have to like learn real quick to just, kind of get himself into a bit of a rhythm. And I also like the fact that, we talked about the concern of the depth behind Campbell and Shalgren. It's not great, which is why it's right now the important thing is to make it out of this healthy.
Yeah.
I think that's the important part is there wasn't any moments where you're just like, all right, is he like wincing? Is he like stretching a little extra? He wasn't doing much of that. So at least we know physically he seems to be all right.
Yeah, he made that one save in the first period. I was off Kevin Hayes, I want to say, where he was kind of he was kind of out of it, laying on his side, and just stuck out the arm and able to get the nice glove stop on a wide open cage. And that was like, okay, that's a bit of a vintage Campbell-esque save right there. So it was good to see Jack have himself a really good game. Another player who I actually liked their game a lot and ended up with a 3-point performance, a goal and 2 helpers, was Morgan Riley. I thought Morgan Riley had a real had a solid game once again. But what I appreciate what Riley's been able to do recently is just like jumping up into the rush. Like the offense is really starting to come from this back end, and Riley's been a big part of it. Timothy Liljegren now with goals in back-to-back games as well. That was a really weird goal. Don't get me wrong. I don't think he intended on scoring that goal, especially when the puck goes off the backboards. It just takes a weird ass bounce, and I don't know. Carter Hart wasn't able to make the stop. Speaking of Carter Hart, I want to have a quick conversation about him with you. Do you think that this guy can get it going, or was he billed too early as like the next great Canadian goaltender? Because when he first came and burst onto the scene, it looked like, okay, maybe this is like the next great goalie that can kind of hand the reins down from Carey Price to Carter Hart. That has not happened. I mean, he has been I mean, hasn't been brutal, but he's not been a good goalie. He's been below average, realistically, when you look at his numbers. Do you think that this is what Carter Hart is, or do you think that he still has an opportunity to become that next great Canadian goaltender that we billed him as a couple of years ago? I know it's not a Leafs related question, but I think it's something that Leafs fans would be interested in, given that Team Canada in a couple of years we're gonna have a best on best tournament. There's no clear cut as to who the goalies are going to be. And at one point, Carter Hart seemed to be a goaltender of the future for Team Canada. And now I'm not so sure.
Yeah, there was. I mean, I remember that draft, and I remember Carter Hart being, like the can't miss goalie prospect in a lot of eyes. And look, the guy's 23. Goaltenders generally don't get to this state, like to where he is, until like 25 ish, right?
Mhm.
I feel like, yeah, I think we know how the Flyers are with goaltending. We know they've been searching for that number one for years, right? So I feel like the pressure, part of that has to do with the pressure. Part of it also just due to the fact that Philadelphia stinks. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
Yeah.
you look at, I thought they were going into the right direction with guys like, Provorov, Sanheim. Like, they were building something pretty solid there. Then they go on and make moves like get Rasmus Ristolainen, bring in Keith Yandle, like guys that
Cam
just,
Atkinson.
yeah, like it just felt like like you were going in the right path, and then I think it says something that when you move away a guy like Sergei Bobrovsky, he goes out and he wins the Vezina almost like right away. I think it kind of says more about your team situation than the player itself. So I feel like if I'm the Flyers, I'm not wasting Carter Hart, and I'm not throwing anything away just because of a couple of rough seasons where the team just hasn't been good.
Yeah, I just like he's on what his third coach, I think, in like 4 or 5 years, 4 years. He's on his third coach already. I mean, that's the team does stink. I'll say that they do stink, but a 311 goals against and a 907 save percentage right now, had an 877 save percentage a year ago. It hasn't gone well. I guess we could say that it has not gone well the last couple of years for Carter Hart. And hey, that was kind of the thing that ended up costing Ron Hextall's job. If you recall, he didn't want to call him up. He's like, he's 20 years old. He's not ready for the NHL. He needs to
Yeah.
fail in the AHL and figure himself out and how to get through those tough times. And he was never afforded that opportunity. He got called up, had the taste of success right away, but now he never learned how to get himself out of the this situation he's in right now, out of problems, and has been unable so far to do it. He's only 23, tons of time for him to do that. Goalies typically don't come into their own until they're mid to late 20s, usually, anyways, unless you're, Andre Vasilevsky. So that's like legitimately the only goaltender I could think of in recent memory. Like Carey
Like
Price as well, another one. But
Spencer Knight, they brought him in a lot earlier than I was
well,
expecting.
yeah, he's 2021 right now, but he's also struggling in
Yeah.
Florida. Like his numbers don't pop off the charts at you. They did last year, but this year in a full season, they haven't quite been the star-studded
No.
stats that we thought they would be. Last one I want to talk about. You know what? Why don't we take a quick break here, actually? When we get back, let's chat a little bit about this Keith Yandle situation. He was,
Sure.
he was had the reigning Ironman streak going into the game on Saturday against the Maple Leafs. He's a defenseman for the Philadelphia Flyers, 35 years old, and coach says, "Sorry, we got to end it. We got to get a look at some youngsters." And the Ironman streak ended the other night in Philadelphia. So we'll chat about that and also get to our 3 stars of the game. But before we do, let me tell you about one of today's show sponsors, and that's Built Bar. Go ahead, Dave.
All right. So obviously we're now getting into the lean time of the year where we're having a little bit of trouble sticking to our New Year's resolution. We all want to lose weight, look good, feel good. Well, let's let Built Bar help us with that, because not only do they taste great, but they are actually good for you. Have you tried their puffs? They're one of your best tasting bars. They're the first ever protein infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallow. They're not just a protein bar, they are a treat, and they're made with 100% real chocolate. They are low calorie, high protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. Most candy bars are about 200 to 300 calories. Not Built bars. They're roughly 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. And they come with many delicious flavors on top of the puffs, like mint brownie, coconut almond, and new for this month, white chocolate cookies and cream. One of my favorites. So make sure you go over to built.com, use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. So that is locked15 for 15% off at built.com.
Welcome back into Locked On Leafs, the daily Maple Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with me as well. We're your host of Locked On Leafs. You can find us for free wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube as well, Locked On Leafs, for the video version of that. So Dave, before we get into the 3 stars of the game, let's chat a little bit about this Keith Yandle situation, which kind of took Twitter, kind of set it a buzz for a little bit there, and obviously for good reason. 989 consecutive games Keith Yandle has played in the NHL, suited up, and that streak came to an end. The Ironman streak is over. He's no longer the reigning. I guess he is the reigning record holder, but no longer the reigning Ironman streak, as that came to an end because they wanted to take a look at some players of the future, and they wanted to look at some of the youth that was in their lineup. How did you feel about this situation from from a I don't know, just how did you feel about the situation?
Well, at first, we were kind of getting the rumblings that it was coming. Let's not forget that this was happening when he was in Florida. So this
Yeah,
isn't like a new situation where all of a sudden the coach, like, this was happening before, and Florida kind of was guilted into keeping him into the lineup. Um, the part of me is just like the guy's 11 games away. You can find other ways to get younger guys into the lineup. I know you don't want like to scratch an Ivan Provorov or Travis Sanheim just to keep Keith Yandle to the lineup. Doesn't really make a lot of sense. And because he's 11 games, it's just like you gotta let him get it. But at the same time, Mike Rupp made a great point about this. I don't know if you heard his take on it,
I did.
but he's just basically saying that's not the spirit of the actual Iron Man streak. The Iron Man streak is not just, the longevity, keeping yourself, healthy enough to be in the lineup, but also being there on merit. Like
Yeah,
being there because you're actually a contributor in the lineup. I'm sorry, Keith Yandle as a minus 39
yeah.
this season is not a contributor in an NHL lineup. Like this guy,
Yeah.
when he was with Florida, he was putting up 50, 60 points, 40 points. There's justification for him to be in the lineup, although defensively he hasn't been great. But in this case, no, like he's not this. Like you're putting him in the lineup for the wrong reasons. Then you're not doing it for the team. You're doing it for the individual. And I think at the end of the day, that's I think where the Flyers are going with that.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you, and I was with you before I heard Mike Rupp, and what he said was totally true. But what I was saying is like this is the NHL. It's not a charity game. Like
Nope.
you don't just sit there and you get to play every single night just because. Like you got to earn yourself and earn your way in there. And you talked about him being a minus 39. Like if you dig deeper into the analytics, I was looking at his relative stats to his team because you could look at him and be like, okay, well, he plays for a terrible team. His
Yeah.
stats are all going to be bad. But so I was like, let me look at the relative statistics to everyone else on his team. And even there, he's negatives across the board. So like the team does especially worse when he's out there. So how can you even get a proper look at some of these guys if he's fumbling the puck, if he's giving it away, he's not defending properly? We just talked about Carter Hart and his struggles. I mean, that could be a portion of it. Obviously not a whole lot, but so there could be an element of that's baked into it, his personal performance. But also, yeah, the Flyers are a team that is looking to kind of retool and rebuild, and they've got some younger kids who they do want to get some eyeballs at the NHL level. And it just makes sense that someone who's not part of their future is the one who's going to have to, unfortunately, sit out and idly watch as those guys go out and play and just kind of sit by. I get it. 989 games in a row consecutively. That's a tremendous feat that he was able to do. But as Mike Rupp said, a lot of that was more so just based on reputation as opposed to merit. And Phil Kessel is a similar circumstance who now currently has the Ironman streak. He's at 968. So he's 21 games now shy of breaking Yandle. So he won't do it this year. If anything, he'll do it next year. But even him, like, remember when he had his baby? They literally, like, he played one single shift in that game and like kept the streak alive, and then hopped on a private jet and went back to Arizona for his baby, and then was back playing Toronto literally like the day after that or 2 days later. So it's the spirit of the record, I suppose, is a little bit like, to Mike Rupp's point, it does kind of go against that. But to me, it's more so just, nothing's should be given to you in the NHL. You got to earn things. And Keith Yandle, unfortunately, did not earn the opportunity to stay in the lineup. Just because you've played almost 1,000 games in a row isn't quite the same thing as earning. Like, some people feel differently. They feel like, hey man, this is a veteran in the league. He's earned the opportunity to play through this for a crap team that's going nowhere. Sure, you can have that opinion. And that is, that could be a correct take as well. But I also don't fault or blame Philadelphia for doing what they did either. Yeah, go ahead.
Also, I don't know if you realize this too. The greatest gift that Keith Yandle has given the Toronto Maple Leafs right now is how badly the Florida Panthers salary cap situation is getting screwed over by the fact that they bought out Keith Yandle's contract. He counts I'm just looking at it now, almost 5.4 million against the cap next season
For Florida,
for Florida.
love it. Love it.
So if we're all if we want to make this about the Leafs, just thank Keith Yandle for being part of the reason why the Florida Panthers are going to have to make some very unfortunate decisions in the offseason.
Keith Yandle, how long was he rumored also to like be a potentially a Maple Leaf at some point?
I watched this guy when he was in Arizona and when he went to Florida, and I'm just like, keep him away.
Yeah, now, yeah. But like him and OEL were always rumored for
Yeah.
years to come to Toronto. All right, let's get to the 3 stars from last night's game. 6-3 win, Toronto defeating the Philadelphia Flyers. The Maple Leafs now. What did they end up? They're now sole second place in
They're
the
tied, but they have the wins over Tampa Bay. So
right.
this is a very important game on Monday night, but we'll get to that in the next segment. But
We'll get to that exactly. But yeah, completely tied in terms of points percentage. But ROW, regulation overtime wins, Maple Leafs with one more win over the Tampa Bay Lightning. So when you look at the game against the Philadelphia Flyers, there 6-3. Who's a third star for you? I didn't have a difficult time coming up with 3 stars for this game. But for me, there was really like 2 guys who I thought deserved it. And then the third star, I was like, who should I give this to? And I cheated a little bit, Dave, as I tend to always do. I know how much you hate when I do that, but it just made sense for me to do it. What? Third star, I gave the penalty kill the third star of the game. I think the penalty kill always kind of comes up clutch for the Maple Leafs. Like, they just tend to do it. Like, they were 2 for 2, killed off both penalties, and probably in both of those had the best opportunities to score in each of those, and one in which they did score. Pierre Engvall ends up getting a shorthanded goal. The Maple Leafs now, if I'm not mistaken, lead the league in shorthanded goals. And that was a really nice play made by Engvall as well. But just the way that they pressure the puck carriers and pressure them into forcing turnovers, and they always end up turning it the other way, and the way that they just kill time. It is a really talented, well-executed penalty kill for this Maple Leafs team. They're a top 5 kill in the NHL. I thought that they did an excellent job the other night in the 2 opportunities they had. What was this? Yeah, tweet by D-Man, or Life of a D-Man. Leafs PK with Mikheyev on the ice. 5 goals for, 3 against. High danger scoring chances against 13. High danger scoring chances for 11. The man is a penalty killing god. Think about that. When Ilya Mikheyev is on the ice killing off a penalty, the Leafs are +2. +2.
the goal differential.
+2 goal differential with him on the ice on the penalty kill. It's insane. Insane. It basically the same amount of high danger scoring chances. It's insane. Ilya Mikheyev, yeah, good for a shorthanded chance each and every game, it seems. As is Pierre Engvall, Mitch Marner. He always ends up having opportunities. So good on the PK. They were my third star of the night.
Yeah, my third star was Senior Jack Campbell.
Mm,
He didn't have to be amazing. He just needed to be good, especially in that first period. I felt like he did that. I feel like he deserved some props for that first game. In a scoreless first period, you need your goaltender to kind of, stop the bleeding. And Sheldon Keefe acknowledged that for the first 10 minutes of the game where they felt like the Leafs were on their heels, he definitely did that for them. And, these are the types of games the Leafs have always struggled with. And if your goaltender comes out and plays really well, it makes it a little bit easier to get through those games. So credit Jack Campbell for that one.
yeah, I had Jack Campbell coming in as my second star of the game. Stopped 29 of 32 shots. And expected goals against of around 3. It was like 2 and change. I think I have it here, 2.56. So, roughly basically what the expected numbers were against him. But he came up with the big clutch saves when he needed to. He doesn't have to be, the best goal. He doesn't have to be November Campbell. If he could just be league average, which is roughly what he was, a little bit better than that, I guess, on Saturday. But if he could stop 29 to 32 each and every night, this team will have a chance to win a lot of hockey games. And just for the way that he played in the first period specifically, to keep this team in it until they found their legs offensively in the second and mainly into the third period, he deserves a second star for me in that game. What about you? Who's your second star?
I'm going to give it to Mitch Marner. I mean, there aren't many Leafs that had great games, but he had the best play of the game. That setup on Austin Matthews' goal was
Filthy.
too good.
Yeah.
Too good. Like, um, those are the moves that show that Mitch Marner is just his confidence level is at an all-time high right now. And let's just hope that those can stay in the playoffs because those are the types of moves, those are the types of plays you're going to need to be successful. And got Austin Matthews that number 51 keeps it going, keeps them getting one more closer to setting that new Leafs record. So yeah, I'm gonna give it to Mitch for his wow factor on that play to Austin Matthews.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why I gave my first star of the night, to be honest with you, for a lot of the same reasons. And like this guy, he's always zipping around out there. Like the confidence that Mitch Marner has is incredible right now, and obviously got an assist as well on the night, and or 2 assists on the night, and the one on Austin Matthews was like the highlight, just like freezing the goaltender, skating it around, and then just giving it to Austin, who has a wide open cage, no doubt about it, type of goal from him. His 51st of the year, now just 3 shy of tying the Maple Leafs record. But Mitch Marner, I thought was a fantastic game out of him the other night. So I also thought for a lot of the same reasons that he was really good. So I gave him my first star. So I'm curious who your first star of the game is. I think there may be one other player who I debated putting in my 3 stars that I didn't. I'm going to assume he's your first star.
The Wayne train keeps on chugging.
Oh, okay. That's a little
Look,
off the board, but I like it. I approve. Go ahead.
I loved the comments after the game saying that Wayne Simmons scored one of the ugliest breakaway goals that
Hell,
Colin Blackwell had ever seen. I thought that was fantastic. But this is a guy that in the last 2 games has shown, I don't know, someone lit a fire under this guy because he's
yeah,
looked like a different player the last 2 games. He's hitting everything in sight. He got into that fight with Zach McEwen late in the game. He tried to go earlier.
I
He
know.
tried to get those. I don't know, man. Like I don't understand what the refs are trying to do. Like are they trying to protect Zach McEwen? Was that the reason?
Well,
Because
then why let him go late in the game if
yeah,
that's the
well, I
case?
guess they're just like you guys really want to go? Okay, just go at it. Like I think the refs just had enough of the jostling. But I just
He fed him, by the way. Oh, he fed
oh
him
yeah,
good. Yeah, he
that
fed
was
him good.
Zach McEwen's a tough cookie. Like
He
he's
is.
no slouch.
Yeah.
So Wayne Simmons showed him who's boss in that altercation there. But I really liked his play. Look, it's what you need from a fourth liner. Whether he can keep this up, we'll see. I feel like you're going to need a little bit more of this as this, during the stretch run. You're going to need guys like this to kind of pick up the team where it's a little bit tough. So it's a positive thing to see Wayne Simmons succeed. And I know other people have doubted why he should be in the lineup. I think maybe we should hold off on that criticism just a little bit, because you have to have the right expectations for a player like Wayne Simmons.
Yeah, but almost like these couple performances stem off of a stint up in the press box.
Yep.
So I wonder if that's, it either lit a fire up his ass, or it allowed him to kind of rest up and then give himself like another little jolt of energy at a couple of games here where he's been able to come out firing and playing really, really well, I would say. And I wonder if that's why, because he had a couple more days rest than he usually does, allowed his body to rest and rejuvenate, and then was shot out of a cannon the other night in Boston, and then came or in Winnipeg, and then came through with another strong performance against Philly, and Philly, obviously a former team, he wanted to have a good showing in that building. The fact that he was able to score a goal and then also get into a fight, I thought, let's get this guy an assist, right? Get him the old Gordie Howe hat trick, but I wasn't able to complete that one. But hey, that's a nice that's also that's worthy of a first star. I approve. I approve, David. I definitely approve. I thought you might have went with Morgan Riley because I thought he had a really good game as well.
He was on my list, and I'm just like, well, Mitch had that nice play. Campbell, he deserves a bit of a shout out.
Yeah.
Riley wasn't too bad, but I felt like if I'm looking for like standout performances and plays, and those three had them for me.
Fair enough. Fair enough. All right. Those are our 3 stars of the game. Let's take one more quick break when we get back. The Tampa Bay Lightning will be hosting the Maple Leafs tonight, Monday, and they had practice yesterday. So we'll go over practice lines and see if there's any changes. We'll debate who should start in net, and we'll do all that when we return. But first, how about a word from today's show sponsor, betonline.net. BetOnline is your number one source for all your betting needs, sports, and information. Find all the latest sports developments, including this week's Masters Championship odds, podcasts, reviews for all the different leagues this season. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. Welcome back into the Locked On Leafs podcast. I'm Mike DiStefano, Dave Morassutti with me. We're your hosts of Locked On Leafs. You can find us wherever you get your podcasts through audio form, and you can also find us on video form on YouTube. And just one more reminder that we are doing a giveaway on YouTube. If you're subscribed to us, you'll be entered for a chance to win a Tim Hortons Superstar Austin Matthews collectible stick. I have not ripped off the seal, so it's possible that it could be one of these like special edition golden superstar sticks, and they could be signed or whatever. So, hey, could be a decent little prize there for you. Just make sure, and all you got to do is subscribe to us on YouTube, Locked On Leafs. We're close. We're almost at 500. And then once we get to 1,000, we'll have another bigger giveaway in store. Okay. Maple Leafs in Tampa Bay. They've got a couple of tough games, tough back-to-back. We got Tampa tonight and then Florida tomorrow. So it's going to be an absolute slugfest going through the Sunshine State the next couple of days. The Leafs are going to have to make sure that they are ready for it because it's going to be difficult. Luckily, they seem to be getting a little bit healthier, right? Jack Campbell, he's back. Labushkin returned to the lineup. Hall, obviously, still good to go. So this team is starting to get healthier, which is a good sign. And where do you want to start here? Why don't we actually start with the practice lines today? Because something was interesting. I want to have a discussion on what they should do with the lines. So the last few games, Nylander and Tavares had been split up, right? And it actually has worked, right? It seems like Tavares has, the last week or so, his game has really picked up, I've found. And Nylander, too, in the last couple of games, really starting to pick it up as well, playing with Camp and Engvall. Nylander apparently not practiced today. He was absent a non-COVID illness, I believe was the designation given by Sheldon Keefe. So Nick Abruzzese was in his place on the third line, which suggests to me that tomorrow they're going to keep going with Mikheyev, Tavares, Kerfoot, and then if Nylander's not good to go, I guess Abruzzese would get a chance with Camp and Engvall, but most likely Nylander's going to be there. My question to you, Dave, is like, how long do you expect those two to play apart from each other? Like, do you like the way that they have three well-balanced lines right now, or would you rather see them load up that top six and keep the third line more of a checking line? Like, how do you think that the most optimal way to put these, I guess, top nine lines together right now?
I I'm of the opinion that you need to be, if you're going up against a team like Tampa, who have a third line right now of Nick Paul, Brandon Hagel, and Ross Colton. I don't think loading up the top six is going to be enough, right? Like Brandon Hagel is a decent player. Nick Paul has been shot out of a cannon since being acquired from the Senators. So like you kind of need guys that can step up and play well in that third line. And I think eventually you're going to need Nylander to be with Tavares. I still think that's where this team will have to find its success.
They
So
did
maybe
score. Hey, they did score a 5-on-5 goal.
they did.
Nylander spot Tavares, nice little goal there. So maybe that is the start of rekindling that duo there, perhaps.
Yeah, I do think, maybe keeping Mikheyev up there makes the most sense, and then you drop Kerfoot down to the third line.
Mhm.
So if you have Kerfoot with Kampf and Engvall, I think that trio can work quite well, actually. So I'm of the opinion that you need to have a balanced top nine in the playoffs. I don't think you can go and expect the top six to be loaded and win. So I still think Nylander needs to get back with Tavares. Maybe experimenting against the Tampa Bay Lightning doesn't seem like the best strategy, especially that Nylander was out of practice. So I think you just keep everything the same for this game. If you're struggling and you need to make a move, then you can put Nylander with Tavares, and hopefully that sparks something. But I think keep things the same, keep the winning formula there, and then you kind of reassess the situation going forward.
Typically, as fans, I find, and like people, well, we cover this team on a daily basis, not only as fans but as like journalists, I guess, broadcasters. We tend to look at this team in like a super micro lens.
Yeah.
But macro is the way that the Leafs organization tends to look at it, and so often I remind myself of some of the things that Sheldon Keefe has said, and often he'll look at it and he'll say, "Yeah, I'd like to give this line a run and see what it looks like." So after us, we're looking at it 3-4 games in. We're like, "Okay, that's got to change. I want to see this now. I want to see that." Meanwhile, he's like, no, a run for him is like 10 games. Like he wants to see a segment of 10 game blocks,
Yeah.
and then he'll make his assessments after that. So I wonder if that's going to be the situation here, where he's giving these guys a run, despite them showing a little bit of chemistry at 4-on-4 last week, and then again late in the game in Philly when it looked like, was it Tavares, Mikheyev, and Nylander ended up having a couple of shifts together, and it resulted in a goal. I thought, maybe they're going to go back together. And then when I see the practice lines and it's back to Mikheyev, Tavares, Kerfoot, and that is where I go back to thinking, oh, right, Keefe has a long-term plan, and it's more of a 10-game segment type of plan. So I wouldn't be surprised if we'll still see a few more games of seeing them split up, and then just for like the final couple of weeks before the playoffs, maybe that's when they can get put back together if they're both rolling at the time, and maybe that's when we see the sparks kind of start to show again for these guys, and then they could be on fire right as the playoffs hit, and that would be best case scenario for this group, because if they can do that, I agree with you. Camp, Kerfoot, and Engvall could be an extremely effective third line, a really effective third line. And with the way that Mikheyev is starting to score goals, and at the very least, the way that he takes pucks to the net, the way that he can break into the zone, these are all very, very positive things that could help with Tavares and Nylander. That Kerfoot, he was adequate at it. He was decent at it. I'm not sure if Mikheyev is like that much better, but it does bring, kind of a different element, and he's not afraid to go and muck it up in the corners as well. So optimal. I think that we'll see it eventually, but I don't think it'll be as soon as tomorrow or maybe even earlier in the week. I think maybe it'll be a couple games down the road before we see those guys back together.
Yeah, no, I think that makes most sense. And like people say, oh, Tavares and Nylander weren't doing well together. I said, well, they also hadn't had like a guy like Mikheyev on the left side. I think it just changes the dynamic of that line because now teams are actually going to have to respect what an Eli Mikheyev can do, right? The way he can take the pucks in that, and
Yeah,
his speed is something that like Nylander is quick, but he's not going to be a guy that teams are worried about on the forecheck like a
he's not a
Mikheyev.
burner. Yeah.
No, so I
Right.
think that dynamic is a little bit different. Like Kerfoot was, as you said, he was not bad, but I just think Mikheyev has kind of exceeded what people thought he was going to do, and he's clearly trying to keep himself in that top six conversation.
Yeah. The only thing about that is like, I just the third wheel on that line can't be the one to drive it. Like that can't be the
Mhm.
one that kind of is the car starter, right? They got to start their own engines in their own way. They're paid to do that. Like that's the only thing that I look at. It's like, okay, maybe now that they have this player and he brings this element, it's like doesn't matter. They should be able to do all those things with whoever they're playing with because they're that good of players. They're paid to be those players, regardless if it's Kerfoot or Mikheyev. But I understand that it's not really what's going on right now with those two players. So maybe a little bit of a change in Mikheyev's style could maybe help get those two back on the right track here. Okay, we are unless there was a was there a starter announced
There
in
was.
practice?
It is
Who's
Mr.
starting in
Campbell.
goal? Is it Mr. Soupy Jack Campbell?
Soupy is back in.
Makes sense. Makes sense. I
It does.
I I was prepared to have the conversation as to who I thought should start. I was gonna say Jack, get him back out there again. And typically, you like to start your first goaltender, your starting goaltender in your first game of back to backs. But when you're taking on Tampa and then Florida on night two, there's not really an easy opponent there. So then you might as well just give them the first night and give your team the best opportunity to win the game with your better goaltender. So I think that's a smart call and a good call. And he also just played well enough to earn another start, I thought, on Saturday. So a couple of reasons why I think Keith made the right choice.
Yeah, and I also think I saw Campbell when he played against Tampa in Toronto in the 2-1 overtime win.
Oh,
He
he
was
was fantastic in that
really
game.
good. He outdueled like Andre Vasilevsky was good, but Jack Campbell outdueled him in that game, which is very rare to see. He didn't do so well in the second game against Tampa, but I think the Leafs as a whole were not very good defensively when they played Tampa the last time. And Tampa's coming off of that loss to Montreal where it's just like no one was talking about that. Like no one's talking about Montreal beating Tampa, right? It's only when the Leafs lose to Montreal is out of panic. Just gonna point that out there. But
Yeah.
I kind of I'm no, I think Jack Campbell deserves to start. And then the Florida game, you can put Shalgren in, and that'll give Campbell the night off after playing those the two games there, and you kind of get him. You try to hope you're getting the Leafs at their best because this is a team that they're tied with points wise in the standings. Like this is like I'm surprised this game isn't getting any more hype because this is like potentially this is most likely a playoff preview right now.
Yeah, yeah, I think there's a strong possibility that these two teams are going to finish second and third in the Atlantic, and it could very well be a playoff preview. To come here. Eh, I I really hope that the Maple Leafs can. Like, here's the thing: they've played extremely well now in what, three straight playoff caliber teams. Yeah, Florida, then Boston, and then Winnipeg. Still playoff caliber team despite
They're in
being
the
in the
playoff
Atlantic right
hunt.
now.
Yeah, they're not in the
They're
playoffs, but they're
Yeah. So it's three playoff caliber teams they played solid hockey against. Didn't play that great against Philadelphia despite picking up the win. Let's get back to that solid style of hockey that they tend to play when they play up to their opponents when they're taking on the Tampa Bay Lightning. Let's get back to that. I think that will definitely because you just got to set the tone. Set the tone early. If Wayne Train's out there, he's going to be rolling around and trying to make some big hits early, maybe drop the mitts with a Nick Paul or something like that. Someone who's out there for them, or perhaps a Zach
or
Bogosian,
Mr.
maybe.
or Mr. Patrick Maroon or Corey Perry.
Yes, a Corey Perry would make a lot of sense based on what happened in the playoffs last year. He wasn't a member of of that team, but still, we all know what happened there. So I think it's going to be a terrific game. You know, it always is Tampa, Toronto, and the fact that it could again be just like a playoff caliber game between two teams who could meet come May. A little bit of an early preview on a playoff. I think they still have one more game after this against each other. I think they do. I don't
Uh,
believe this is the end of the road.
there is another one on April 21st, an eight
Yeah,
o'clock start.
interesting. This is
And
in
I'm not
Tampa.
lying this time. I know I've gone times
Later.
wrong in games. But this one is an 8 o'clock start because it's on ESPN. It's a national game on ESPN.
Oh, so that'll be a big time game for sure. An interesting little tidbit for if you're planning on betting this game. Um, so like right now, the Tampa Bay Lightning are favored to win this game, and they're favored minus 130. So, and I think that would make sense. Looks like a lot of the public is betting on them, but also the money is coming in on Tampa Bay. But if you take a look at kind of one interesting trend between these two clubs over the last little bit, the road team has been successful. Whichever team has been on the road, and if you look at this season, um, Toronto Toronto had a home win and a home loss, so it was 1-1. But so they lost at home and they won at home. But the road team is 6-2 in the last 8 meetings between these two clubs. The
I,
under is 9-4 in the last 13 meetings in Tampa Bay. So
yeah,
I wonder if those trends mean anything to you.
I remember the last time. I'm pretty sure I remember the last time the Leafs played Tampa in Tampa. It was one of Timothy Liljegren's first. He was just getting started. The Leafs had some tough injuries.
Well, I was right before the pandemic,
Yeah,
actually. No, wait. Yeah,
yeah,
it was. It was right before the pandemic.
and they
Yeah,
won that game too. I
it
remember.
did. Yeah, it was a 2-1 win against Tampa. They were supposed to come back and play Nashville, and then all hell broke loose.
Yeah,
The world ended for 2 years, going on 3. Yeah, that was the last time that they were in Tampa Bay, I believe.
yeah, I know exactly. And so, yeah, we haven't really seen the Leafs play a lot on the road in Florida. This is the first time in 3 years that we're going to see this, or
Wrong. I'm
2 years.
wrong. I'm wrong. Hold on. Hold on.
Oh,
They're at home on March 10th. So that was at home.
and then all hell broke loose.
February 25th. So like a couple
That's
weeks
the game I was
earlier.
thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah, a couple weeks earlier they were in Tampa. They still won that game 4-3. So I mean, Toronto's won 3 of the last 4 games between them and the Bolts, interestingly enough.
I think there's something to be said about that. We've always said they play up to their, they don't. We'd like to see them play up to those tougher opponents.
Mhm.
Tampa matches up quite well skill wise. It's just where they have the advantage is obviously the goaltending, and they have a guy named Victor Hedman that the Leafs just simply do not have.
Yeah, he's not.
But Austin Matthews is pretty good. Mitch Marner is pretty good. It's really, I think, it's going to come down to how does John Tavares handle that second line. How does he handle not with Matthews probably going to be the center of attention. How does Tavares take advantage? Because really, that's where you hope the Leafs can get a little bit of a boost.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think that the depth is gonna have to come up big for this line because their top line with Kucherov, Point, Palat, Stammer will be involved in there. Like that kind of crosses out the Matthews, Marner, Bunting in terms of those lines will just be matched up and they'll go blow for blow. So it's going to come down to the depth. Could Tavares step up? Can William Nylander play the way that he's played the last couple of games and kind of build off these performances? Can we get another goal from an Engvall or a Mikheyev or a Blackwell? Can Wayne Simmons continue to play well? I think it's gonna be a fun game, and the Maple Leafs, they're gonna want to make a statement, right? They're gonna want to make a statement. They're gonna want to come out and say, "Hey, look, this may be a playoff matchup in the future. We're not gonna roll over you. I know you're the 3-time champs, but we're the Toronto freaking Maple Leafs, and we got 2 words for you." What 2 words are they, Dave?
Oh, 2 words. I thought we were gonna go with 1 word.
No, I mean he came. Come on, he came out today too.
He's retiring. That was sad.
Yes, suck it are the 2 words that
Yeah,
we're referring to.
I was gonna do the I was gonna
Yeah. The Generation X, it's a wrestling thing. Triple H retiring last week, came out for WrestleMania and kind of said hello and opened up the show.
and
So I
drop
thought
the boots.
he did drop the boots.
He
Where'd
pulled
those
the
come
under.
from, by
Pardon?
the way? Where'd those come from?
I don't know.
They
Actually,
just kind of appeared in the center of the ring, eh?
it's WWE with their magic.
Like someone just came.
Someone put them there on those camera shots. They can sneak a guy in there to give him his boots.
Yeah, but why not have him just do it himself? Anyways, not the conversation people came here for. They don't want to hear about our WrestleMania quorums that we'd had despite the finish not looking like it was the way it was supposed to end. Right results, maybe the wrong finish, but there are many other podcasts that you can listen to, or you can find our Twitter accounts where we also
Yeah.
tweeted about the WrestleMania. If you really want to know our thoughts on it, you can DM us on Twitter. I'm Mickey_Canuck. He's D_Morassutti. But that's to do it for us here today on the podcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and supporting the show. You can subscribe to the Locked On Leafs podcast on all podcasts and platforms and receive daily Leafs content. Follow myself on Twitter at Mickey_Canuck. Follow the show at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back there with another episode tomorrow. We will recap the game against the Lightning, tee up the game against the Panthers. But until then, keep it locked right here on Locked On Leafs.